Comment down below where you're watching from and don't forget to like and subscribe if you hate Karen. Malcolm Brooks had spent most of his career in the hum of Washington, D.C., coordinating high-stakes operations from windowless situation rooms. At 47, freshly promoted to assistant director of the FBI, he decided he finally wanted a patch of quiet, somewhere he could swap midnight briefings for the rustle of cottonwoods and the breeze. After months of searching, he found it. A 15-acre homestead in Willow Creek, an affluent township perched on the gentle rise of the Blue Ridge foothills. The estate, once the centerpiece of a sprawling farm, had belonged to Professor Emeritus Walter Hendricks, an octogenarian historian who had spent the past decade subdividing and selling parcels to new families while downsizing his own living space. Hendricks kept a modest carriage house at the far edge of the property and, charmed by Malcolm's vision of preserving the land's serenity, offered him the last and largest tract at a fair market price. The main residence, a two-story colonial with white clapboard siding, hunter-green shutters, and a wraparound porch, stood beneath a canopy of century-old oaks. A detached barn, now converted into a three-bay garage and workshop, rested just beyond a gravel drive. Rolling meadows merged into a ribbon of hardwood forest that shielded the rear boundary from the neighboring subdivision. To Malcolm, it felt like a personal wildlife refuge hidden inside suburbia. He imagined morning coffee while deer grazed at dawn and evening jogs along the old fence line after days spent in the marble corridors of the bureau. Closing day came on a crisp Saturday in April. Malcolm arrived in a charcoal pickup loaded with moving boxes and his German Shepherd, Ranger. Neighbors waved from manicured lawns as the truck rumbled past, welcoming him with polite curiosity. He sensed promise in the air, certain the tranquility of Willow Creek would be the perfect counterbalance to the pressure cooker of federal law enforcement life, a place where, at last, he could breathe. The first week Malcolm Brooks lived on the Hendricks homestead felt like the opening of a long-promised vacation. Every morning he brewed Colombian roast in the farmhouse kitchen, carried his mug out to the porch, and watched sunlight slip through the oak branches. Ranger, his German Shepherd, patrolled the yard, tail wagging at the discovery of new scents, fox, rabbit, and occasionally black bear from the higher timber. Malcolm told himself the stillness was medicine. After 2 decades in tiled, fluorescent war rooms, here at last was air free of pagers and crisis phones. By day 4, a mild annoyance surfaced. The daily bundle of mail, utility forms, welcome flyers, and 2 small packages of bureau briefings, never arrived. Malcolm drove a mile to the post office on Willow Creek's Main Street, sliding his badge across the counter in that gentle way agents do when they don't want attention. The clerk checked her manifest. Everything had been sorted and placed in his roadside mailbox the previous afternoon. She shrugged, wishing him luck. That evening, returning from town, Malcolm slowed at the foot of his gravel drive and frowned. The brass numbers he had polished only a day earlier, 480, Lawson Farm Road, were gone, leaving raw screw holes in the cedar post. At first he blamed a prankster or a souvenir-hunting teenager. Willow Creek, after all, had its share of mischief. But a whisper of unease rode with him up the quarter-mile lane. He spent the next hour reattaching a spare set of numbers from the garage workbench, then mounted a pair of weather-sealed trail cameras to either side of the mailbox. They captured anyone within 30 feet, day or night, and transmitted thumbnails to Malcolm's phone. Past field assignments had made him a believer in layered defense, alarms for buildings, encryption for networks, and, when necessary, cameras for empty countryside. Dawn broke with cardinal song and the low chuff of rangers' inspection rounds. Malcolm scrolled through the camera log between bites of toast. At 2:11 a.m. a hooded figure had approached the post, flashlight clenched in his teeth, multi-tool glinting under the beam. Less than 30 seconds later, the numbers were in his palm. The thief held them up to the camera, seemingly amused, then tossed them into a backpack and jogged toward the subdivision road beyond the tree line. Malcolm magnified the final frame, a clean-shaven young man, maybe 19 or 20, blue college hoodie half unzipped despite the chill. One detail leapt out, an embroidered varsity letter M over the heart, Willow Creek College colors. The assistant director's pulse ticked up not in anger but in analytic focus. Profiles formed instinctively: university student, comfortable in the neighborhood, confident enough to linger for a cameo. The hoodie's hood had slipped, revealing sandy hair and an easy grin, as if the prank were no more serious than Ding Dong Ditch. Instead of rushing to the sheriff, Malcolm chose reconnaissance. He copied stills to a secure case file, noted timestamps, and made a mental to-do list: confirm identity, yearbooks, local social media. Check repeat visits, leave cameras rolling. Review property line approaches: could the trespasser be parking nearby? Late that afternoon the pattern repeated. 2 packages from Quantico tracking a new cyber investigation never made it inside the mailbox. This time, however, the cameras told a fuller story. At 1:57 p.m., broad daylight, a silver compact car rolled to a stop. The same young man stepped out, opened the box lid, and rifled through the letters. He pocketed a padded envelope, stuffed the rest back in, and drove off. The plate was visible: Virginia tags, BRV 4907. Malcolm entered the data into the Virginia DMV portal reserved for federal state task forces, then set his phone aside. Ranger's ears twitched, catching the tension. "Easy, boy," Malcolm said, rubbing the dog's collar. "We're just gathering facts." He resolved to meet his new neighbors. Casual chats at fences often revealed family names, school affiliations, and whether the high school quarterback now lounged in someone's basement. Malcolm started on the north side, closest to the subdivision. Retired airline pilot Frank O'Leary joked about his tomato garden and warned of the occasional deer tick. Abigail Cheng, a pharmaceutical sales rep, brought over lemon bars and noted that a couple of teenagers liked to buzz the back road after midnight. Neither mention fit the smug young man in the hoodie, yet Malcolm sensed a thin thread connecting them all. Just before sunset, as he carried empty casserole dishes back across O'Leary's lawn, Malcolm saw fresh gouges on his mailbox post. New holes where, once again, the numbers had been torn away. His shoulders tightened. Mischief was edging toward obsession. Inside the farmhouse office, he spread printed screenshots across the desk: the nighttime caper, the afternoon mail theft, the license plate. He added a MapQuest image highlighting the likely escape route: 2 blocks west to Brookline Circle. At its end sat a colonial with a 3-car driveway: Linda Miller, county tax rolls revealed, owner since 2016. Her listed household members included Brady Miller, student, age 19. Malcolm clipped the data into a binder labeled Willow Creek Case 01 and exhaled slowly. The young man's smirk played in his mind, careless, almost daring someone to react. "Well, Brady," Malcolm muttered, shutting off the desk lamp, "tomorrow we'll see how fun your little pastime feels in the daylight." A chorus of crickets greeted the farmhouse as he climbed the stairs to bed. Ranger curled at the foot of the quilt, one eye open in canine vigilance. The property beyond the window looked serene under the moon, yet Malcolm knew the calm was only surface deep. Beneath it, currents of entitlement and petty malice had begun to swirl, threatening the refuge he had so carefully chosen. He drifted to sleep planning next steps: a courtesy visit to Linda Miller, a discreet word with campus security, and, if necessary, formal charges. For now, he would keep the Bureau out of it. The man who led multi-state manhunts believed neighborhood peace should begin with conversation. But if conversation failed, procedure, and the law, would follow. Malcolm Brooks approached the investigation the way he handled any emerging threat: with discipline, discretion, and rock-solid documentation. At sunrise he powered up the secure laptop stationed in his study, a windowed room that overlooked the sweeping southeast meadow, and pulled the prior night's video clips into a forensics folder. Every frame was tagged with GPS coordinates and a digitally signed timestamp, precautions ingrained from years of evidentiary work. He toggled through each second, enlarging the grainy shot of the young trespasser's varsity blue hoodie until the blocky pixels surrendered a clearer view of the embroidered letter M. Malcolm opened a second browser pane and began triangulating. First stop, the Willow Creek College athletics page, a goldmine of candid team photos. He located the baseball roster, then the intramural basketball Facebook group, scanning faces for the same sandy hair and easy grin. 5 minutes later he froze the cursor over a name that matched the license plate registry hit from DMV, Brady Miller, class of '28, economics major. A click on Brady's public Instagram sealed the match. Selfies in the driveway of a colonial 3 blocks west, an address Malcolm now knew belonged to Karen Miller, real estate agent and self-described, third-generation Willow Creek native. With identification locked, Malcolm built a working file called Miller Harassment Series. He dropped the JPGs, the license plate capture, and printouts of the college roster into a binder, then drafted a concise narrative of events, timeline, Day 4, 2:11 a.m., brass house numbers stolen. Day 5, 1:57 p.m. Mail tampered with, bureau package missing. Suspect, Brady Miller, 19, residence 312 Brookline Circle, son of Karen Miller. Vehicle, silver Honda Civic, VA tag BRV4907. Before leaving his desk, Malcolm launched the county's incident report portal and logged a non-emergency trespass complaint, attaching low-resolution proof. He purposely withheld his bureau credentials, aiming to treat the matter as any private citizen would. Sometimes, he reminded himself, the badge could wait. That same afternoon, evidence of escalation emerged. During a perimeter walk with Ranger, Malcolm discovered deep tire ruts carving a muddy serpentine through his northern pasture. A fresh pile of fast food wrappers and 2 crushed soda cans lay beside the impression, detritus that had not existed the evening prior. He photographed the tracks with a measuring stick beside them, 14 inches wide, matching the Civic stock tire width. The soda cans bore faint fingerprints in greasy smears. He handled them with nitrile gloves and sealed each in a quart zipper bag. Back at the farmhouse he unpacked an older, but bureau-grade, field kit, magnetic powder, lifting tape, and blank acetate sheets. By twilight 3 partial latent prints, and 1 nearly full right thumb ridge pattern, were carefully mounted in a temporary evidence folder labeled BM Print 01. Malcolm had no immediate plan to run them through AFIS, but he wanted redundancy. If the harassment continued, a forensic trail would exist independent of eyewitness statements. A text alert pinged on his phone, Trail Cam 2, motion detected. He opened the live feed. 2 silhouettes ambled along the unpaved service lane that skirted the boundary fence, one tall, lanky figure dragging a branch across gravel, the other, shorter, kicking something metallic. Malcolm expanded the view. The taller form wore that same varsity hoodie. The shorter carried a spray paint can, shaking it with the distinctive chicka-chick rattle of the mixing bowl. Though the image washed out beneath porch floodlights, Malcolm captured 4 sequential frames in which Brady Miller's face tilted toward camera, eyes bright with mischief. A flare of anger rose in Malcolm's chest, followed immediately by a tempered calm. He had learned long ago that righteous fury solved nothing, meticulous procedure, on the other hand, solved everything. He forwarded the images to his laptop, time-stamped them, and filed them beneath overt acts, vandalism, intent. The next logical step was a neighborhood canvass. Malcolm donned a casual flannel and walked Ranger along Brookline Circle at dusk, when porch lights sparkled and residents tended front-yard chrysanthemums. At 310 Brookline a young mother watering azaleas smiled as Ranger sniffed the mulch. Malcolm struck up easy conversation, steering gently toward local chatter. "Teenagers get up to much around here?" he asked, jerking a thumb toward the main road. She grimaced. "If you're talking about the late-night joyrides, yeah, mostly the college kids. I've called the HOA twice." She lowered her voice. "Brady and his buddy Zach think the neighborhood is their playground. His mom, Karen, never sees any fault. Says boys will be boys." The Homeowners Association, HOA, rang a bell. In the sale paperwork, Malcolm remembered seeing bylaws about quiet hours and property respect. He filed away the reference, thanked the neighbor, and continued. At 312 Brookline, the Miller residence loomed behind clipped hedges and a flagpole. Two vehicles occupied the driveway, the silver Civic and a black SUV emblazoned Miller Realty, selling Willow Creek since 1985. Malcolm noted fresh mud caked behind the Civic's wheel wells. He felt no urge to confront Brady yet. Instead, he circled home and wrote an email to the HOA board chair, documenting nights of number theft, mail interference, and property ruts, attaching the pertinent photos. He requested they log the complaint in their meeting minutes. If civil remedies later became necessary, injunctions, fines, or a restraining order, paper trails would already exist. Within 48 hours, the pattern intensified. Malcolm awoke Thursday at 5:30 a.m. to find his driveway dusted with sheetrock screws. 2-inch, sharp-shanked, meant to puncture a tire the moment he rolled out. Nearby, a half-empty box from Willow Creek Hardware lay in the grass. A quick glance revealed the store label along with a credit card receipt bearing the name B. Miller. The recklessness astonished him. Vandalism was one matter, but leaving receipts? That showed entitlement bordering on arrogance. He photographed and swept the screws, then drove straight to the hardware store. A polite inquiry with the morning manager confirmed the purchase, Brady, charging it on a joint account with Karen Miller. Security footage would be available with a subpoena. The manager agreed to preserve it. Back home, Malcolm stacked each new artifact, screws, receipt, store footage contact, into the expanding binder. He felt the momentum of a well-built case. Every fresh insult was another brick in a wall closing around Brady and Karen. Yet he also felt sorrow. Willow Creek was supposed to be retreat, not battleground. He wanted no headlines, no badge-waving spectacle, only the simple dignity of an undisturbed life. But dignity, he knew, sometimes required action. He closed the binder and wrote 2 letters. One was a formal cease and desist addressed to Brady and Karen, citing Virginia Code Section 18.2137, property destruction, and Section 18.2152.3, computer misuse, for tampering with his networked mailbox cam. The other went to the county sheriff. Non-Emergency Division, requesting a courtesy patrol and noting that he, Malcolm Brooks, would soon seek a criminal complaint if the harassment continued. He slid both envelopes into the outgoing mail slot down on Lawson Farm Road, kept copies for his records, then paused to gaze across the pasture where dew still glistened. Somewhere beyond the maples he heard distant laughter, young voices echoing confidence that they owned the night. A hawk wheeled overhead, shrieking as if to punctuate a truth Malcolm already understood: the wheel of consequences turns, whether one believes in it or not. He looked at his watch. Another day's bureau work awaited, briefings on cybercrime upticks, a Senate liaison call at 10. He breathed, squared his shoulders, and walked back to the farmhouse. The refuge he loved was under siege, but every new scrap of evidence brought resolution one step closer. Soon, facts would meet authority, and the game would end. Saturday afternoon, the sun hovered just past its zenith when Malcolm Brooks set out on foot toward Brookline Circle. He left Ranger on a downstay at the porch, suited himself in jeans and a bureau polo, casual enough for neighborly conversation, official enough to hint at resolve. The binder of evidence remained locked in his study. This first approach, he believed, should carry only words and an open hand. Children's bicycles lay scattered across driveways as he neared 312 Brookline. Wind chimes tinkled, and the scent of budding lilac drifted from clipped hedges. A for sale placard, Miller Realty, your home, your haven, leaned against the front steps. From behind a screen door came the murmur of daytime television. Malcolm rang the bell once. Footsteps approached, and hinges creaked. The screen parted just wide enough for a sharp hazel eye. "Can I help you?" a voice asked. "Good afternoon," he replied, adjusting his tone to pleasant strength. "I'm Malcolm Brooks, new owner of the Lawson Farm tract. I wondered if we might speak a moment about some property concerns." The door swung wider to reveal Karen Miller in pressed khaki shorts and a pastel blouse. She looked Malcolm up and down, expression unreadable. "Property concerns?" "Yes, ma'am," Malcolm said. "I've documented repeated tampering with my mailbox and address post. Camera footage places your son, Brady, on my land at specific times. I'd like the harassment to stop before it becomes a legal matter." A blush of color rose in Karen's cheeks, not embarrassment, but heat. "My son likes practical jokes," she snapped. "Boys will be boys. Maybe you misread the situation." Malcolm remained still. "Stealing mail is a federal offense. Removing posted house numbers also endangers emergency services. I'm not here to accuse Brady publicly, only to resolve this neighbor to neighbor." The corners of her mouth tightened. "You people always threaten before you ask." The words were soft yet barbed, sliding from her tongue with a practiced familiarity that confirmed Malcolm's suspicions. This community was peaceful long before outsiders bought up the best land. Malcolm's pulse slowed. Years in interrogation rooms had honed his ability to breathe through outrage. "I am an American homeowner exercising my rights," he said evenly. "If you have concerns about my presence, we can address them civilly." Karen snorted. "Civility? The 15 acres you're so proud of should have gone to families who understand Willow Creek's values. Folks like you, well, you don't usually last." The phrase "folks like you" landed heavier than the noon sun. Malcolm noted it silently, the way one tags a datum in an after-action report. He glanced behind her. Through the open hallway he glimpsed family photos, Karen in a business suit cutting a red ribbon outside a model home, Brady in baseball whites holding a regional trophy, and another image that chilled him, Brady and 3 teammates posing with what looked suspiciously like stolen street signs. "I'd like to think we all want the same thing," Malcolm said, lifting his chin. "Quiet streets, respectful neighbors." They were quiet, Karen replied. "Until strangers started flaunting federal titles and fancy dogs." Malcolm shook his head softly. "No titles today. Just a homeowner requesting decency." Karen folded her arms. "Look, Mr. Brooks, why don't you call whatever agency you claim to work for and file your precious report? My family has ties with the county sheriff. I doubt any deputy will prioritize your misdelivered mail over real crime." The declaration floated between them, both threat and shield. Malcolm filed it away with the same neutrality he granted her slur. "Connections or not," he said, "the law applies. I'm giving your household notice. Further trespass or damage will result in formal charges." Karen's smile was thin. "We'll see." Malcolm inclined his head, then turned down the steps. Behind him, the screen door clapped shut hard enough to shake the frame. Walking home, he parsed every sentence with the precision of a statement analysis. "You people, outsiders, strangers." Classic othering language. Evidence of motive should the case evolve into hate crime territory. The mention of the sheriff's office demanded a credibility check. If true, it suggested potential interference, but his bureau clearance granted him direct lines to state justice officials far beyond any cousin's reach. He reached the mailbox, still sporting yesterday's freshly installed brass digits, and checked the internal SD card from Trail Cam 1. Nothing new since dawn. Yet malice, like humidity, could rise unseen until it stormed. That evening he typed a memorandum of contact, Karen Miller, May 12, 1530 hours. He transcribed her statements verbatim, flagged the racial remark, and appended an action item, verify sheriff relation claim via county HR database. After encrypting the file, he slid it into the binder. Ranger padded over, sensing his mood, and rested a chin on Malcolm's knee. "We'll handle it, buddy," Malcolm whispered, scratching behind the dog's ears. Step by step. Outside, twilight bled amber across the meadows, beautiful yet fragile, like trust between neighbors. Malcolm closed the laptop and gazed toward the silent tree line where day faded into night. He hoped conversation had set a boundary. But experience suggested otherwise. People who brandish invisible power seldom stop when merely asked. 2 mornings later Malcolm received confirmation from a friendly contact in the county administrative office. No Miller, by blood or marriage, held any current or historical position within the sheriff's department. The supposed family tie was fiction. He logged the reply under false claim, authority leveraging, and turned to the second unresolved thread, property lines. He phoned Jackson and Reed Land Surveying, requesting a rush boundary assessment. The original plat from Walter Hendricks showed precise coordinates, but decades of parcel sales could blur fences and memories. Surveyor Elise Reed arrived with a GPS rover and laser transit the next afternoon. Malcolm walked the edges with her, noting every iron rod, weathered post, and stone marker buried in soil. When they reached the northwest corner, Elise frowned at her tablet. According to records, your line runs 20 feet beyond that split-rail fence. She pointed toward the neighboring backyard, where a shimmering turquoise pool lay half-hidden by ornamental grasses. A wrought iron gate bore a stylized M for Miller Realty. 20 feet. Malcolm echoed. Give or take 6 inches, Elise said. She extended the measuring pole, clicking data points. Looks like whoever installed that pool excavated right through your parcel. Malcolm exhaled slowly. Encroachment shifted the dispute from vandalism to civil trespass of land. A leverage point no HOA bylaw could ignore. He photographed the pool, decking, and a corner of the Miller patio furniture now confirmed on Hendricks soil. Elise produced a preliminary map overlay, highlighting the overlap in bright red. I'll finalize this tonight. You'll have a certified report by morning. Thank you, Malcolm said, the gears of strategy turning. He saw, with crisp clarity, the path forward: document, serve notice, then offer a lawful remedy. If Karen valued appearances, and as a realtor, reputation was currency, she might capitulate when faced with trespass that threatened her own investment. That evening, 3 developments converged. First, the HOA board chair emailed Malcolm, acknowledging receipt of his evidence package and promising to schedule a disciplinary hearing for the Millers within the month. Second, Elisa's finished survey arrived in his inbox, complete with sealed coordinates and a statement of professional liability. Third, while Malcolm reviewed these files, Ranger erupted in a thunderous bark. He dashed to the front porch. A graffiti tag, sloppy white spray paint, stretched across the garage doors, "Get out," followed by an obscenity and a crude drawing of a noose. The chemical odor was fresh. Malcolm called Ranger to heel and swept the driveway with his mag light. A silver Civic receded down Brookline Circle, taillights flickering in retreat. Sweat dampened his collar despite the cool night. He reached for his phone and dialed the non-emergency sheriff line, still keeping the bureau in reserve, requesting an immediate patrol and providing make, model, and partial plate. While waiting, he donned nitrile gloves and snapped high-resolution photos of the message. He scraped a test chip of paint into a sterile vial, then positioned an ultraviolet light to capture the overspray pattern. Experience taught him that nozzle spatter sometimes preserved partial fingerprints. Deputy Teresa Vaughn arrived 20 minutes later, polite but weary after a double shift. Malcolm offered coffee and concise facts: timeline of harassment, identity of suspect, survey evidence, and Karen's false sheriff claim. Vaughn listened, jaw set. "I'll log this as a hate crime incident," she said, eyeing the noose. "And if the HOA backs your complaint, we can proceed with criminal trespass." Before she departed, Malcolm handed her a thumb drive containing the latest footage. "Brady will likely wipe that Civic first thing tomorrow," he said. "Time is of the essence." Vaughn nodded. "I'll push it up the chain." After she drove off, Malcolm leaned against the porch rail, absorbing the night sounds: tree frogs, distant traffic, Randy Newman's "Sail Away" drifting faintly from a neighbor's stereo. The innocence of every normal routine clashed with the ugliness sprayed across his garage. He tapped his phone and left a voicemail for bureau psychologist Dr. Lila Bishop. Protocol demanded staff report hate incidents involving employees. Then he opened the secure binder and slid in the survey report opposite glossy photos of the graffiti. Side by side they formed a narrative, racial hostility coupled with material encroachment. Any jury would see motive and entitlement entwined. At 11 p.m. he drafted a formal notice of encroachment and intent to seek injunctive relief, citing Virginia Code Section 55.12905. The letter gave the Millers 15 calendar days to remove pool structures or negotiate purchase of the strip at fair market value. He printed 2 copies, one for certified mail, one for personal service, then slept only after setting motion alarms to maximum sensitivity. Morning brought dew and resolve. Malcolm donned a charcoal suit, bureau ID tucked discreetly in an inside pocket, and drove to City Hall to file the survey and notice with the clerk of court. Paperwork in place, he returned home to find a fresh voicemail from HOA security. A neighbor reported loud music and engine revving near his driveway at 2 a.m. Malcolm thanked them, assured them evidence was collected, and hung up. He glanced at the graffiti. Sunlight revealed every hateful curve. Soon, paint thinner and a power washer would erase the words, but the memory was indelible. He had offered conversation. Karen had answered with lies, and Brady with venom. Now the law would answer them both. Harassment metastasized in the days following the hate tagging. Early Monday, Malcolm discovered the rear panels of his pickup keyed in jagged streaks that bared the steel beneath the clear coat. Tuesday night, firecrackers detonated beside his mailbox at 1:15 a.m., rattling windows and sending Ranger into frenzied barks. Wednesday afternoon, a neighbor's Ring camera captured Brady tossing a half-empty beer bottle onto Malcolm's porch, the brown glass shattering at the threshold. Malcolm documented each insult meticulously, logging times, photos, and third-party footage. When local deputies arrived to take statements, he provided printed case updates thicker than most misdemeanor files they processed in a month. Deputy Vaughn pulled him aside after the third call-out. "Honestly, Mr. Brooks, with the evidence you have, we could pursue felony vandalism and stalking right now." "I appreciate that," Malcolm said, "but I want one more element airtight before we proceed." Vaughn frowned. "And that is?" "Karen's pool. Once encroachment becomes public record, their leverage evaporates. They'll either negotiate or double down. If they double down, I need the Bureau's hate crime division ready." That afternoon Malcolm contacted the Bureau's Richmond field office, requesting a liaison agent versed in civil rights prosecutions. The call triggered the quietly humming machinery of federal oversight. Supervisory Special Agent Denise Harper reviewed his digital binder, recognized the makings of a textbook hate crime case, and authorized limited resources, a crime scene tech, a legal advisor, and, should escalation continue, a tactical escort for property visits. By Thursday dusk, the graffiti still stained the garage. Malcolm had refrained from cleaning it, preserving evidence. He stood in the driveway with SSA Harper and crime scene specialist Miguel Ortiz while Ranger sniffed the perimeter. Ortiz donned Tyvek coveralls, dusted the spray paint handle retrieved from the Miller's curbside trash, located by HOA maintenance, and lifted a usable thumbprint. The print matched Brady's driver license record within minutes. Harper checked the match report and looked at Malcolm. "Your patience paid off. We can file federal charges, 18 U.S.C. Section 241, conspiracy to deprive rights, plus Section 245, interference with housing." Malcolm folded his arms. "Let's give them a final opportunity to correct course. Tomorrow morning I'll serve notice personally, with you and Miguel present." Harper nodded. "Full bureau attire?" "Full," Malcolm said. "Symbolism matters." That night, Hilltop Towing hauled the Civic. Seized under a magistrate's vandalism warrant, onto a flatbed while neighbors watched from porches. Brady emerged in socks and t-shirt, shouting protests as deputies photographed the keyed pickup's paint chips in his trunk. Karen urged him inside, whispering sharply. Her gaze met Malcolm's across the dark street, fury tempered by uncertainty. Malcolm slept 5 hours, a service pistol holstered on the nightstand for the first time since moving in. At 6 a.m. he rose, pressed the bureau dress blues, and clipped the gold badge to his belt. Ranger sensed the solemn ritual, whining low until Malcolm scratched behind his ears. "Guard the fort," he murmured. At 8 o'clock sharp, 2 bureau SUVs rolled onto Brookline Circle, lights off, no sirens, professional, unmistakable. Malcolm stepped out first, binder tucked beneath one arm, flanked by Harper and Ortiz. Across the way, curtains fluttered as curious faces counted agents. A soft knock at the Miller door preceded Karen's cautious appearance. She stiffened at the array of blue jackets reading FBI in bold yellow letters. Brady slouched behind her, eyes rimmed red from sleeplessness. "Good morning," Malcolm said, voice resonant. "May we come in? We have matters to discuss." Karen swallowed, opened the door wider, and led them to a living room staged like a listing photo. Neutral walls, motivational plaques, and a faint scent of vanilla air freshener failing to mask anxiety. Ortiz set an evidence case on the coffee table, clicking latches open. Harper produced an iPad loaded with images, the mailbox theft, the pool encroachment map, graffiti photographs, fingerprint overlay, and frames of Brady spray painting. Each slide appeared with a soft ding, the data's inevitability landing like hammer blows. "I warned you weeks ago," Malcolm began, "that continued harassment would invite legal consequences. You have crossed multiple thresholds: federal mail theft, hate-motivated vandalism, criminal trespass of land, and conspiracy." Brady's bravado crumbled, he sank onto the sofa, face buried in hands. Karen's shoulders tightened, but she kept her eyes locked on Malcolm, a flicker of defiance mingling with fear. Harper detailed possible penalties. Fines, restitution, up to 10 years if a judge deemed the hate crime enhancement applicable. Ortiz laid out the fingerprint card beside the evidence photo. Silence deepened. Malcolm concluded, "I'm prepared to swear out federal warrants today. Before I do, you will consider an alternative resolution, one that restores peace, compensates damages, and respects boundaries." He handed Karen a printed settlement and cease and desist agreement drafted by Bureau Counsel. It required repayment for vehicle repairs, graffiti removal supervised by a certified contractor, reimbursement for surveillance equipment, public apology at the next HOA meeting, and full remediation or purchase of the encroached strip within 60 days. Karen blinked rapidly, reading. "This is extortion." "No," Malcolm said, "this is mercy." A clock ticked on the mantel. The neighborhood outside waited for the next act in a play already whispered about on group chats and cul-de-sac walks. Choice had arrived, dressed in bureau blue, patient yet unyielding. 15 minutes passed with only the sound of rustling pages and Brady's uneven breathing. Karen finally set the agreement down, fingers trembling just enough for Malcolm to notice. "What guarantees do we have?" she asked, voice brittle. "If we sign, you'll withdraw charges?" Harper tapped the last clause. "Upon full compliance, verified by the HOA, county assessor, and our office, the U.S. Attorney will accept a deferred prosecution recommendation. Violate the terms, and indictments proceed immediately." Brady lifted his head. "Mom, I didn't think." "Quiet," Karen hissed, but the command lacked former authority. Malcolm leaned forward, forearms on knees. "Brady, you have a bright future if you choose better paths. The University Code of Conduct has been notified. Cooperate, and they'll consider probation instead of expulsion." Brady's eyes welled. "I'll do whatever it takes." Karen pressed her lips, teetering between pride and surrender. "I need an attorney." "That's your right," Harper said, "but be aware the evidence is overwhelming. Delaying acceptance could eliminate the deferred option. Malcolm added, "Your attorney will advise you of the same." Karen's gaze darted to the pool visible through French doors, water glittering beneath early light, beautiful and indicting. She sighed. "If we pay for the land, how much?" "County assessment places it at $32 per square foot," Malcolm answered. "With improvements already installed, fair market value reaches 40. The strip totals 2,000 square feet. Purchase price, $80,000, plus closing costs." Karen blanched. Even for a successful realtor, liquid cash stung more than fines. "We'll consider." Harper stood. "Take 48 hours. After that, we file." The agents gathered their materials. As they departed, Malcolm paused at the threshold. "I didn't move here for conflict, Mrs. Miller. I came for peace. You can still share in it." Outside, neighbors peeked from windows, a few stood boldly on lawns, smartphones recording. Malcolm ignored the voyeurism. The bureau caravan pulled away, leaving the street humming with rumor. Back home, Malcolm unclipped his badge and changed into khakis, then joined Ranger for a brisk perimeter walk. He reflected on Karen's calculus. Sign and pay, or gamble against federal indictment. Pride and prejudice were poor advisers, yet they often screamed louder than reason. That night a handwritten note slid beneath Malcolm's door, "We'll fix it. B." No envelope, no last name. Ranger sniffed it, tail low, sensing remorse mixed with fear. Malcolm filed the note in a plastic sleeve and allowed himself a rare smile. The following day, an email from Willow Creek University's dean confirmed Brady's immediate suspension pending disciplinary review. The dean thanked Malcolm for providing documentation and emphasized the institution's zero-tolerance stance on hate conduct. A copy of the notice went to the Miller household by certified mail. Meanwhile, the HOA circulated the survey map with a memo outlining pool encroachment and mailbox vandalism. Residents were invited to attend a special session to discuss sanctions, including daily fines and revocation of amenity privileges until restitution. Malcolm declined to speak at the meeting, facts already spoke eloquently. 46 hours after the bureau visit, 2 hours ahead of deadline, Karen emailed signed PDFs of the settlement. Funds for land purchase would be wired within 10 business days. A licensed contractor, Greenwave Restorations, was scheduled to blast and repaint the garage doors under Malcolm's oversight. She requested one concession, permission to continue using the pool until weather cooled, promising to erect a temporary fence along the corrected line. Malcolm considered. Mercy, he reminded himself, must not resemble weakness, but neither should justice lack grace. He drafted a brief addendum. Pool use allowed for 60 days with proof of liability insurance and HOA-approved fencing. He e-signed, copied Harper, and clicked send. Ranger barked once, as if acknowledging closure's first breath. The farmhouse, though still scarred by paint and keyed metal, felt lighter, like dawn after a violent storm. Yet loose ends remained, university sanctions, restitution receipts, and the broader question of neighborhood healing. Those would occupy coming weeks. For now, Malcolm stood on his porch, inhaled mountain-tinged air, and watched twilight settle over Lawson Farm. Somewhere beyond the oaks, crickets began their nightly chorus. Peace was fragile, he knew, but sometimes fragility could be mended, one signature, one apology, one boundary at a time. The next Monday, Karen and Brady arrived at Malcolm's property precisely at 9. No grand entourage, just mother and son carrying paint rollers and a 5-gallon bucket of matching exterior enamel. Greenwave Restoration's crew leader, a burly man named Louis Tate, supervised with quiet efficiency. Malcolm greeted them with a nod, clipboard in hand. Scope of work: remove graffiti, sand affected panels, apply 2 coats. Estimated completion, 4 hours. Brady met his eyes briefly. "I'm sorry," he whispered. Malcolm accepted the apology with a curt bow. Actions today will speak loudest. Under Lewis's guidance, Brady donned goggles and helped pressure wash the hateful scrawl. The water fanned rainbow arcs across morning sunlight, peeling away white paint until only faint ghosts remained. Karen followed with sandpaper, smoothing rough edges. Neighbors' strolling dogs paused to watch, some offered polite waves, others cool silence. By noon the first coat dried, leaving the garage restored to its original eggshell finish. Malcolm documented each stage with time-stamped photos for the bureau file. Lewis signed the work order, Karen wrote a check for labor, and Brady collected trash bags of paint chips for hazardous waste drop-off. As they packed up, Karen handed Malcolm an envelope containing a cashier's check, $80,000, earmarked for the disputed land. A separate receipt showed wire transfer fees already paid. Deed transfer paperwork is at the title company, she said, voice subdued. Should close next Thursday. Very well, Malcolm replied. Once recorded, the encroachment issue is resolved. Brady hesitated. Dean Hayes said I can reapply next semester if I complete a cultural competency program. Malcolm's expression softened a fraction. Then finish it. Your life isn't defined by one season of bad choices, unless you let it be. They left silently, SUV rolling down Brookline Circle, past neighbors who now eyed them with a blend of curiosity and cautious optimism. Inside, Malcolm emailed SSA Harper, all settlement conditions underway. Attached, photo logs, cashier's check copy. Harper responded minutes later, deferred prosecution paperwork filed. Monitor for compliance 90 days. Malcolm leaned back, feeling an unfamiliar ease across his shoulders. The hateful message was gone, the land dispute addressed, and an apology voiced in earnest. Work remained, pickup repainting, mailbox replacement, but the storm's core had passed. He stepped onto the porch with Ranger, who sniffed sun-warmed boards, then trotted to the path where lily buds swayed. Life, Malcolm reflected, was returning to its intended rhythm, mornings of coffee and cottonwoods, nights of quiet stars. HOA's special session drew a standing-room-only crowd in the clubhouse auditorium. Malcolm chose a seat in the back row, jeans and flannel blending him into the assembly. Board President Dwayne Keller opened with Agenda Item 1, resolution regarding misconduct by residents of 312 Brookline Circle. Karen and Brady sat front and center. Brady's shoulders slumped, hair trimmed neatly as if to broadcast reform. As Keller summarized findings. Mail theft, vandalism, hate language, land encroachment, murmurs rippled through the audience, disappointment, relief, and outrage that such hostility had unfolded in their manicured enclave. When Keller invited questions, Abigail Ching stood. Mrs. Miller, will you publicly apologize to Mr. Brooks and to this community? Karen rose, clasping prepared notes. Her voice quavered at first but steadied. I allowed bias and pride to dictate my reactions. I failed my son, my neighbors, and myself. To Mr. Brooks, I apologize unreservedly. To Willow Creek, I ask for the chance to rebuild trust. She turned to Malcolm, eyes glistening. He dipped his head once, acknowledging. Keller read the board's decision, suspension of Miller Realty advertising privileges within HOA channels for 1 year, fines equal to 3 months' dues payable to the Community Improvement Fund, and mandatory participation in volunteer landscaping for common areas, minimum 20 hours each. A sudden swell of clapping filled the hall, not triumphant, but affirming. Some residents glanced toward Malcolm with warm smiles, others shook Brady's hand, muttering encouragement. Accountability, paired with genuine apology, felt cathartic. Outside, dusk painted the sky lavender. Malcolm retrieved Ranger from home and joined a neighborly nod around food truck tacos parked curbside. Conversations floated. Plans for a summer block party, shared concern for property values, admiration for how Mr. Brooks handled everything with class. Brady approached, hands wedged in pockets. "I start the volunteer hours next weekend," he said. "If you need yard work," Malcolm considered, then nodded. "I have a pasture fence that could use fresh stain." Brady smiled, tentative but real. "I'll be there." The evening ended with porch lights twinkling across Greenwood Ridge, and for the first time since moving in, Malcolm felt truly woven into the neighborhood fabric. Deed transfer closed the following Thursday without fanfare. The county clerk stamped official pages, recording 2004 square feet changing hands from Lawson Farm Parcel B3A to the Millers. $80,000 wired promptly into Malcolm's account funded a new pollinator garden and replacement security lighting. Contractors shortened the pool deck to respect the corrected line, and a cedar privacy fence rose between properties, tall, handsome, and mutually agreed upon. Where hateful words once scarred garage panels, a local muralist, hired by the Millers at Malcolm's suggestion, painted a soaring blue heron above rippling water, symbol of renewal in coastal Virginia lore. By July, jasmine perfumed the air, deer visited the meadow, and evening walks passed without incident. During Independence Day festivities, Malcolm flipped burgers at the community cookout while Ranger snoozed beneath the picnic table. Neighbors teased him about secret recipes and asked his advice on mailbox cameras. Karen arrived bearing peach cobbler, greeting Malcolm with measured warmth. Brady hauled coolers of soda, chatting with kids about baseball camp. Conversations felt natural, no longer watchful. Later, fireworks blossomed over Willow Creek, mirrored in pond water beyond the oaks. Malcolm stood beside Abigail Chang and Frank O'Leary, quiet beneath the crackle of color. Frank nudged him. "Told you this place was peaceful, just had to tame a few wild cards." Malcolm chuckled. "Peace takes work." In the glow of red, white and blue bursts, he reflected on lessons etched since April. Documentation over emotion, boundaries enforced with fairness, and the unwavering principle that respect can be demanded without surrendering dignity. As the final firework fizzled, he whistled for Ranger, who bounded up, tail sweeping arcs through warm summer grass. Together they walked the gravel drive toward the farmhouse whose porch lights glowed like beacons. An easy hush settled over Lawson Farm, earned, guarded, and, at last, undisturbed.